Hi, everyone. Sorry, apologies for anyone who was tuning into us there a while ago. We had a little bit of a technical issue. So welcome today to our live chat. My name is Anne-Marie and I will be facilitating this. I'm speaking here from the CFES Central Office in Essex, New York. And today we will be talking to Dr. Greg Threatte. I hope I pronounced that name correctly. And he is a retired professor of pathology at SUNY Upstate Medical University. And he has a lot to talk to us today about. He's going to talk to our scholars and answer their questions about goal setting, the power of potential, and also, very importantly, STEM pathways. So I'm going to pass it over to Greg, and we also have a slideshow today as well that we're going to go back and forth with, and he can guide us on that. But yeah, so Greg, I'll pass it over to you.
Okay. Good morning or afternoon. We're on the border. I'm going to talk today about something I feel fairly strong about, why one should never underestimate themselves in goal setting. And I'd like to use my life story as an example of why you should never underestimate yourself. Now let's see if we can get the first slide up.
The first slide. Okay, here we go. Now, okay, I think we could be having another technical problem here. So we just need that PowerPoint. Sorry about this. It's just not our day for technology. Okay, here we go. Woohoo! Okay, so this is our first slide.
Okay, what I have shown here, what I'm displaying here on the first slide is where my life began. In the upper part of the map is the city of Pittsburgh. And at the lower part, just below the bottom, you see a red star in the middle of nowhere. And that is the coal camp, which is a coal mining town that was built by the mines to house the workers. And it's where I grew up. Let's see if we can get the second slide.
Okay, the second slide. Here we go.
Okay, believe it or not, this is the full extent of the town that I grew up in. And over to the left is First Street. The next is Second Street. And then down here is Third Street, Fourth Street, and Fifth Street. There were total 5 streets in the whole town. And I was on the edge of poverty, but it seemed perfectly normal to us. So you can take the slides down and we'll come back to them a little bit.
Okay, so we will take those down. Sorry about this now. Sugar. And stop sharing. And we are back at our broadcast.
Now, when I was 3 years old, my father died in the coal mine. And that sort of split the family up. My mother moved to Chicago to find work. My 2 brothers moved in with my grandparents, and I was raised by foster parents. Now, fortunately, we were only about 2 miles apart, so we basically saw each other almost any time we felt like it, okay? And for the most part, from grades 1 to 7, my life was pretty normal. At 7th grade came a big exception. Okay, I started off in 7th grade standing 5 feet 7 inches tall and weighing 150 pounds. And by 9th grade, I was 6'5", 154 pounds.
Wow. Wow.
I was tall, skinny, and as clumsy as you could be. Okay? And you can imagine if you're growing that fast, you know, every day your feet are a little further from your head. And before you can get control of your body parts, they grow some more and move further away. So I played grade school basketball, but all the short guys could out jump me because I was just so clumsy. So by ninth grade, I fortunately um, stopped growing. Now, ninth grade is a very important time in life, okay? And I think the best description of that time I heard from one of my medical students talking to a youth group, and he said, the ages 15 through 25 are a very important time. And the essence of it is you can pay me now or you can pay me later. Okay?
Yeah.
You can either work hard from 15 to 25, and then when you get 45 or 50, you can just coast on to retirement. Or you can coast when you're 15 to 25, and by 45, you'll still be cleaning up other people's bathrooms. Okay? You pay it now or you pay it later.
Yeah.
Well, I, at ninth grade, decided to do what most of the young males in my hometown and township play sports. Now, I wasn't that good in basketball, but football was my sport. Let's see the next slide.
The next slide. Okay, let's get that up. So we have the next slide here.
Okay, this is a picture from my yearbook freshman year. My high school was known for one thing, football players. And you see here are three guys from a class of 125 who were All-American football players. Now, this was a long time ago. The guy in the top picture was first team, was from my high school. And when you get to the next picture, you see his house and the goalpost there. Yep, there they are. Well, that guy in the first picture was first team, all conference, all state, all American. And the second team, all conference, all state, all American quarterback was a guy by the name of Joe Namath.
Okay.
Okay, you can take the slide down.
Okay, so we'll get rid of that.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, I decided that I was going to play hard, play football, because it seemed to be about the only way out of the coal mining fields. Okay. And I succeeded in doing that. The clumsy ninth grader became, by my senior year, I was the biggest and the fastest guy in the high school. And won about 18 scholarships.
Wow.
To cool places like Nebraska and Arizona State and Maryland and Wake Forest. But my coach was fixated on me going to either Colgate, Cornell, or Penn. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And he insisted that I was too good to go somewhere and play football and major in basket weaving. I needed to take a shot at getting an education, and he talked me into it. At the same time, there was a saying that was quite common in those days. It said, shoot for the moon. Now, this may have come from the fact that at that time in 1961, 62, John F. Kennedy announced that we were going to go to the moon, and we were going to land a man on the moon by the end of the decade. And sure enough, in 1969, we landed a man on the moon. And so it just seemed very natural to shoot for the moon. It seemed very natural that technology was the way of the future. And so I went off to college, shooting for the moon at Colgate University. Okay. Now, please feel free to interrupt me and anytime. But I can't remember who it was, but somebody sat down with me to talk about my college choices and stuff. You can go to one of the big football schools and major in basketball even, and be very comfortable. Okay. But if you go to Colgate or Cornell and Penn, you're going to have to stretch. But the thing about stretching is whether you reach your ultimate goal or not, you're going to wind up somewhere in a better place than what you are. So that fit with Shoot for the Moon, and I went off to Colgate. Now, I played freshman football at Colgate. Unfortunately, had a broken toe most of the season, and a broken toe just destroys your ability to run and cut, and it won't heal long as you're still playing. And so my football career came to an end. I got a job because I needed a job to pay for my meals in the physics department, working in the lab. And that spring, the two professors really pressured me and talked me into being a physics major. Now, unfortunately, I didn't know physics was supposed to be tough. Okay, so again, let's shoot for the moon.
Yeah.
And so I started off as a physics major. I think in my first physics course, I got a D.
Oh, okay, yeah.
3 years later, when I was a senior, I got A's in quantum mechanics. I got an A in geophysics. And, my strength of my science performance just sort of grew proportionately along the way. That's called late bloomer. Bloom late rather than early, which means that, the expectation might be, like if you were going to go to medical school, was that you'd be a pre-med. And it depended highly on your performance early. But here I was, a late bloomer, and I decided to apply to medical school anyway. There's a little story behind it, but it was just basically a gamble. Now let's see the next slide.
Yeah, I just want to, sorry now, just before we move on to that slide, we actually got a question in from a person. They were asking, was it hard for you to transition to Colgate after high school? So did you find that transition difficult in any way?
Well, I kind of oversimplified it by saying it was a stretch. It was sheer cultural shock. In my hometown, I didn't see myself as poor because everybody else was poor. Okay. Getting to Colgate and seeing some of the cars that the kids were driving around.
Yeah.
It was sheer culture shock. And And here I went through to a little country high school.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got to college, I heard about folks going to all these outstanding prep schools. And I started with the fear that, maybe I was in the wrong place, that I could not possibly compete with these guys. Well, and I say guys because Colgate wasn't co-ed when I was there. They didn't go co-ed till after I graduated.
Okay.
But it took about a year or two for me to discover that I put my pants on the same way they did.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody was performing better than I was, they were doing something that I wasn't doing.
Mm-hmm.
So go find out what it is.
Yeah.
And do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And so, yes, it was, but that's what I mean by stretch. Okay, you need to take the opportunity, and if you're determined and you're willing to stretch, you can do it just as easily as anybody else. So never underestimate yourself.
Yeah. And I guess, I mean, hindsight is a great thing. I suppose right now, would that be your advice? If you were to give your younger self advice, would that be it? Like looking back and going, God, I wish someone had just told me to, keep the chin up and not to be overwhelmed by that cultural difference. Because if you experience it.
Okay. Culture can be learned very rapidly.
Mm.
I mean, people actually learn languages fairly rapidly. If you already know the language, it's easy. Okay. But I guess the advice that I would give would not be a lot different from advice each of you are probably already getting. It's just you got to figure out who to listen to.
Yeah.
Coach said, shoot for the moon.
Yeah.
I had several other teachers say, shoot for the moon.
Yeah.
For each of them, I had about 5 people say, well, you never do that. Well, that's too difficult. How many times do you hear people say, well, you can't do math, that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
You do physics, that's hard. Okay. The attitude you have to take is, if anybody else can do it,
Yeah.
I can too.
Brilliant.
And it may take a little effort to initiate.
Yeah. Yeah.
You may be a late bloomer, but in reality, if anybody else can pass the biochemistry course, that was a turning point towards going to medical school, because I had taken this course my sophomore year called thermodynamics.
Okay.
And there were these 2 pre-meds in my fraternity who were taking physical chemistry and having difficulty with. And I was sitting there listening to a talk, and it dawned on me that thermodynamics and physical chemistry were basically the same course. One was taught by the physics department, and one was taught by the chemistry department. And so I started tutoring them in the physical chemistry.
Wow. Brilliant.
But again, it's a discovery.
Yeah.
I discovered that I knew something that they didn't know, which kind of kept me from, gee, they had much better preparation than me.
Mm.
I overcame the preparation.
Brilliant. It's great to hear. Okay, will I get that next slide up for you then?
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Let's go. So we have our next slide. Now, we'll go.
There's this a picture. Of course, it's me with the bald head.
Mm-hmm.
The physics professor knelt down next to me.
Okay.
And what I'm fiddling with is a radio telescope. Okay, this is something our physics club built that we could, detect radio waves from outer space and try to map objects in space using radio waves.
Wow.
Now, building right behind the professor, about 150 feet from where we are, where we're standing, we also built a subcritical nuclear reactor that lasted until about 1985. Now, it didn't give off, it gave off less energy than it took to run it, but it also, we learned a lot of atomic principles from that. So this was, part of that maturation from being a late bloomer to coming on strong at the end. And I know this was my senior year because you can see the ball. I came back from Christmas break my senior year, and after having a disastrous haircut, I could do with that bad haircut was shave my head bald. The next day, I get a letter inviting me for an interview to medical school with 2 weeks.
Wow. Wow.
Back to here in 2 weeks. So I went to my medical school interview with a bald head. Okay, you can take down that slide.
Okay, so we'll get this off. So just one moment. Sorry about this. Okay, so we'll stop sharing. Okay, now we're back.
So here I was, senior. I applied to 2 medical schools. One me for an interview, and it was clearly not an expected outcome for me to get into medical school because I wasn't a pre-med.
Okay.
I'm, in fact, a late bloomer. Now, how many late bloomers get into medical school? Now, I think I was lucky because I went straight from college to medical school. So I started medical school when I was 21 and 22, just like all the successful pre-meds. But if you look at medical school incoming class, about half the students are 30 or even more. About half the incoming class in most medical schools are late bloomers. The committees are set up to evaluate your strengths and not cast aside simply because you got a D in organic chemistry. There are a lot of folks who recovered and went on to medical school later on. So again, underestimating yourself is not a good idea. Actually, talking about medical school in general, if you look at last year, roughly 45,000 applicants applied to medical school total from the United States of America. 20,000 students got into medical school. Okay, so you divide that out. Now, everybody applies to 10 or 12 different schools. So all medical schools have like 8,000, 9,000 applicants for like 150 slots. But if you look at the whole pool of 45,000 and divide it and do the math of what happens if 5,000 students get in. If you fill out the application, you got almost a 40% chance of getting in medical school.
Wow, yeah.
What are the chances that you get in if you don't apply?
Yeah. Yeah.
They are zero.
Yeah. Actually, we have one question now that just came in, okay? So I'll just bring it back. So, did you know that you wanted to be a doctor when you entered college? So what happened there? Because, like, I mean, you're talking about physics and being in the physics department. How did the doctor idea start?
Well, you have to think back to the times. When I started medical school, I was one of only 5 Black students in the incoming class. There weren't a lot of opportunities for Black students in medical school then. Most of the Black students in the United States went to either Howard or Meharry Medical School. Not a lot of opportunities. I don't think I ever expressed the desire to go to medical school in high school because it just did not seem to be a possibility that I could get in. Okay. Now, something happened between 65 and 67, and all of a sudden, the opportunities opened up. Now, it's not only between 65 and 67 for medical school. If I had have gone to Wake Forest or University of Maryland to play football, I would have been the first Black football player at those schools. You know, the middle 60s was the civil rights movement was just underway. And early 60s, there were no opportunities. Late 60s, the opportunities started. So now, when I started college, I decided I was going to be a chemical engineer.
Okay.
And when I went down to sign up at registration for chemistry, they pointed out to me that if I majored in chemistry, I couldn't play football and I needed to give up one or the other. And so I gave up chemistry at the start of my freshman year, only to come back to physics and give up football my sophomore year.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So I'll let you continue. Sorry, I know I kind of interrupted your flow there.
And that will also illustrate somewhat the next phase of my life. I got accepted to medical school. I arrived, and it was like there was nobody had seen Black students at the Syracuse Medical School in decades. And you were faced with people believing that you really can't do this. You know, the people you confronted with people underestimating you. Now, chief amongst those who underestimated me was the chairman of the physiology department.
Okay.
Unfortunately for him, I guess, is that physiology is just physics. You just change the name of the variables. It's the same laws. And he and I got in an argument shortly after I started the course. And because I left the lab early, because I wasn't learning anything. And I spent the remainder of the course showing him that he could not make an exam that I couldn't ace. And that sort of launched me into what was I could describe mostly as essentially as let me prove to people that I can do this. Okay, and I not only did the last slide, if you can pull that up.
Yeah, we'll get that up.
Okay.
Yeah.
That slide shows is the Alpha Omega Alpha Honor Medical Society. That is basically the Phi Beta Kappa of medical school. I not only graduated from medical school, I succeeded to as high as you could succeed.
Wow.
I went, I did well enough that when I applied for residency, I applied to 2 programs. You can take the slide down.
Okay, so we'll get rid of that. Let's see here. Oops. Let's just, sorry about this now.
Okay.
Okay.
While I was a resident, I started my residency in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And it snowed like crazy that winter. And coming from Syracuse, I was sick of snow. And so I heard on the news that the day it snowed for the first time in 16 years in San Francisco. And I was looking for a residency in the land of no more snow that day. And I applied to a program at University of Southern California, Los Angeles, and the program at University of California, San Francisco. 2 programs that were, 2 of the hardest programs to get into in the country. I never got so much as a phone call from Los Angeles County, USC. They sent me a contract, sign it, and you have the job.
Wow.
University of California, San Francisco was nice enough to call me and say, we're going to give you this job. If you happen to be out on the West Coast at a meeting and would stop by and see us, you can, but you don't have to. You have the job. And I spent my last 2 years of residency at UCSF. The chairman decided that maybe I should look into academic medicine because I was good enough at teaching. And so I went off with him to Lawrence Berkeley National Lab and did research for 3 years. I went on to become an assistant professor at Georgetown. Okay. I came back after 5 years at Georgetown. I took a job back at this medical school that I left and never wanted to see again as part-time associate professor and part-time deputy to the president. And people said, well, if you go into administration, your academic career is over. When I spent 9 years in administration, came back to the Department of Pathology, and 5 years later, I was named chair.
Wow.
So basically, one way of looking at my life is you can say, my life is a perfect example of how far you can get. Not really having a plan to start with. Okay. But more important than the plan is don't underestimate yourself. Because sometimes plans can get in the way of opportunities. And when good opportunities come along, You just have to say, okay, I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody else can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
And that's the key to moving on and succeeding. I guess we can look back at what if I had gone to University of Nebraska? Well, maybe I would have been an outstanding football player.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe again, I would have gotten hurt. I couldn't be an outstanding football player. Halfway through college, I gave up football. Was there anything way of getting back on track at a big football school? Well, you know, in a small school like Colgate, it's a lot easier to get back on track.
Mm-hmm.
So again, never underestimate yourself.
Yeah.
And even if you start slow, there are plenty of opportunities in this world for late bloomers.
Yeah.
If you shoot high. Now, one thing, I was talking to a gentleman 2 weeks ago who's on the National Science Foundation, and we were talking about being a physics major. He says, how often when you were a physics major, did you apply for something and people look at you and go, well, if you can do physics, you can do this?
Yeah.
It happened just about everything I applied to.
Yeah.
You know, people, I mean, if you accomplish something,
Yeah.
people recognize that and you get more chances.
Yeah.
Stem from that.
Okay. So we have one last question before we wrap up from a watch. So we have, this person is asking, did you have any mentors in your life who helped you keep going when you started to doubt yourself? And you mentioned a few times throughout the chat, like there were tough times that you encountered. So did you have any mentors at that time that you can think of? I
think I had mentors at every step of the way. Okay. Starting with my football coach. Well, actually, even before that, my sixth grade teacher kind of monitored my progress through junior high and high school. And every time I sort of steered off the path, she kind of jumped into my case and got me back on it. The two physics professors to talk me into becoming a physics major. And then almost every year of medical school, I had a mentor. Mm-hmm. My mentor, who I went off and did research at Berkeley, at one point had the most citations in medical literature, you know, over the previous 20 years. Now, what did the mentor do for me? They believed in me before I learned to believe in myself. There are people around you who will believe in you before you learn to believe in yourself. Listen to those people. Stay away from those people who don't believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But unfortunately, there are plenty of them.
Yeah. There is, yeah. Well, that's really great advice, and I know we've been talking a while, so I'm feeling very inspired and pumped up after that talk, Greg. So thanks so much for that. So we're going to finish up, and yeah, thanks to everyone that's tuned in and watched. Apologies for all the technical difficulties, guys. And yeah, and we hope to see you at our next live chat. And yeah, we'll see you then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.